Hey guys, it's Michael. Welcome back to my YouTube channel and welcome to a new video. Today, I want to give you a blueprint on how to get from 0 to a 50 kg pull-up. The best part of this video, you don't need to take any notes. Just click the link in the description and you will find a full document explaining the whole blueprint process from 0 to a 50 kg pull-up. The training program of the blueprint is divided in 3 phases, and now we're gonna start with phase 1. Phase 1 is all about leveling up your body weight reps. The main goal of phase number 1 will be to achieve 10 clean bodyweight pull-ups. Why are we aiming for 10 pull-ups? It's pretty easy to be explained. In phase 2, we want to start to add weight to your repetitions. So we want to have a solid foundation that we can add weight progressively without hitting a plateau too quickly. If we can do around 10 clean bodyweight pull-up, it should give you, depending on your body weight, already an estimated 1 rep max of around 20 kg plus minus, which will help you. The system of phase number 1 is super simple. We're gonna have 2 days where we train pull-ups. The minimum requirement that we need is 5 bodyweight reps. If you cannot do 5 bodyweight reps, then you're gonna use the lightest resistance band available that allows you to perform 5 repetitions in a clean manner. Your first pull-up day always starts with an M-rep set. That means you perform as many repetitions as possible. What we define as failure point is you not being able to get your chin over the bar anymore with clean form or a solid 1 rep in reserve. So what you do is you perform your M-rep set. Let's say this was my M-rep set and I performed 7 repetitions. Then 7 repetition is set, and this is what we're gonna use to calculate the repetitions for our back off sets. In this phase of training, the most important part is movement quality. In order to keep the quality high, we want to train not too close to failure with those lifts in order to adapt to the technique, to get our passive structures used to the load, and smoothly entrance into the pull-up training. If your M-rep set was 6 reps or lower, you're gonna reduce your back off sets by 2 repetitions. Just go into the document, check the volume table, and then for the given amount of back off sets, you then do 4 repetitions. If your set was 7 or higher, you're gonna reduce by 3 repetitions for your back off set. So you're gonna do, in this case, 4 repetitions again. And then you just train the given amount of back off sets again with clean form, because we dropped the reps a lot so you can maintain proper movement quality. Pull-up session number 2 has again a super simple system. We're just gonna take a look at the volume table again, and then we do the number of reps we did for our back offs on day 1 for the given amount of sets you can find in the table. So here's how that creates progress. With your M-rep set, you set the rep count for each week. And as you're a beginner now, you should be able to at least every second week increase it by 1 rep, which will automatically increase the back off sets on day 1 and so on day 2. And so week by week, your total rep count will increase, making it super easy for you to progress almost linearly to 10 clean bodyweight reps. Every good pull-up program, of course, also comes with a bit of accessory exercises. In this program, you of course also will find accessory exercises, and I will explain you in detail why I chose those exercises. If we take a look at the main challenges of the pull-ups, they are to install a proper shoulder extension. So the mechanism where we bring the arm from that overhead position next or behind the body. And this mechanism done in a clean way is super important to load our shoulder progressively without having the risk of overloading injuries. And you will often see beginners having troubles to control the shoulders. They will shrug up, the elbows will flare, they will arch a lot through the spine, and in order to prevent those from happening or making those compensation movements smaller and smaller over time, these are the assistance exercises that we're going to use. The first assistance exercises that we're using in this program is a single arm row. Rowing is a key element in order to install proper shoulder mechanics. So here's what I want you to focus on when you are doing your rows. In my case, I'm going to use a cable setup on this V station I have. In a regular gym, you could also use a dumbbell setup. You could use a regular cable rowing machine, but you could also use any type of cable setup that is available for you. When it comes to rowing, what we want to learn is the proper movement mechanics between the upper arm, the shoulder, and the scapula. So what you want to do is you want to keep your sternum upright, and then when you start to row, the arm goes backwards and the shoulder stays in a neutral or slightly protracted position. So then you row back, and with that rowing movement you can see my arm is moving backwards, my lat is engaging, but the shoulder stays in position. And when my arm is rowing backwards, this is the point where my shoulder starts to retract and slightly elevate. So I'm going into the stretch without any rotation. My sternum is still facing the cables, and again I'm rowing from the stretch to the contraction, and my shoulder moves only as much as it needs to allow the arm to travel. So what we want to avoid is motions like this, and motions like this, where you pull into a retraction and it's deleveraging the lats and let the rear delt and the biceps do all the work. So what we want is to install a very, very natural pattern going from protraction into a small retraction and elevation without forcing it. Basically, we ignore the scapulas most of the time and just let the arm move backwards. If you can progress this exercise and start to row heavy with good form, the chance that your scapula is able to move properly in a pull-up is almost 100%. So make sure to get your rows right. Second assistance exercises for phase one is a preacher curl. The preacher curl is an absolute nice exercise when it comes to installing proper supination, proper elbow bending, so that elbow flexion movement, and working on shoulder external rotation, as that preacher curl will force your upper arm in an external rotated position, and the pad will force you to keep that arm in position and bring yourself back in between your shoulder blades. And in that position, we're going to perform the preacher curl and progress it for the given amount of sets and reps with the progress scheme described in the programming sheet that I provided you. During pull-ups, we need to transfer force from our hands through our whole body. That means if we want to accelerate ourselves explosively and later on move a lot of weight, we need to be able to properly engage our midsection. And the technique that we need for that is called stacking. Stacking means that we want to be able, that in the case of the pull-up, in our overhead position, to maintain a relatively stacked position between our rib cage and our pelvis, so that they are almost parallel, or as parallel as possible. A second reason for the upcoming exercise is that in order to do more pull-up reps, we also need grip strength, which can be limiting in a lot of beginners. So to combine both, what we're going to do is a hanging core exercise. And in the case of phase one, we're going to use a knee raise or a leg raise if you're already a bit more advanced. So the goal is to bring the sternum down by exhalation And then what we're going to do is we try to bring the knees to our chest without using a lot of this pull over motion. A bit is of course fine, but try to reduce it over time. So bringing the sternum down and then raise the knees to get a nice core engagement. Make sure that you really tilt your pelvis, because only if you get into a nice flexion, so a nice bending into your lower back, the whole abs will work properly. Now that you unlock 10 repetitions in your AMRAP top sets, it's time to proceed to phase number 2. The main goal of phase number 2 will be to hit 6 to 8 repetitions with 25 kg additional weight, as that set will give you the estimated potential to hit 50 kg for a single. Of course, sometimes a bit more, sometimes a bit less, depending on the body weight. And here's how we will go from 10 bodyweight pull-ups to 6 to 8 reps with 25 kg. For this phase, we now need some equipment. As we're starting to train weighted, we now, of course, need a weighted belt. If you're interested in getting a professional run directly from the start, which is, of course, what I recommend, you can get a King of Weighted belt, and there's also a 10% discount code in the blueprint document, so make sure to check it out. What else do we need? In order to get the progression scheme done correctly that is described in the document, you need to have access to 2.5 kg plates, and if you get stuck a bit in your progress, it would also be good if you have access to 1.25 kg increments, because at a certain point it might be a bit too fast to load up with 2.5 kg per week. If you have access to that, you can start the system right away. The progression scheme of phase number 2 again is super simple. We want to keep it simple. We want to cut out all the fluff in order to give you a system that you can easily use and easily monitor. So it starts for everyone with 2.5 kg, or if you ended phase 1 with a lot of struggle, you can also start with 1.25 kg. If you have never used the belt, here's some tips. The first thing you want to do is you want to close it in front to secure it so it does not slip. Then one end of the daisy chain or regular metal chain goes in the D-ring on one side. Then you want to go through the weight plate and then go with the third carabiner into the second D-ring. If you're moving bigger plates later, it's very nice to have them in between your feet. For the beginning, it's not necessary, and you can also use different holes of the daisy chain to hang it a bit higher. At the beginning, it doesn't really matter. And the goal for our top set on day 1 in phase 2 is to get 5 repetitions with 2.5 kg, which should be easy as you're now able to do 10 reps body weight already. So what you're gonna do is you're gonna do your 5 reps. I miscounted, not sure if it's already 5, but we're assuming it's 5. Then for your back off set, you just do 5 reps again, but you drop the weight back to body weight. Then you do that for the given amount of back offsets, and you can see the amount of back offsets I suggest you to do in the document. Once you trained your day 1, it's time to proceed to day 2. And what we're going to do is we're going to alternate the progression day by day and week by week. Within a week, we're going to increase by 1 repetition. Top set for day 2 is 1 repetition more than the top set of day 1. So we're loading up 2.5 kg again, and now we're doing 6 reps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. For the back off sets on day 2, we're going to use our first technical pull-up variation. And here I suggest you to use a pull-up with a short hold on 90-degree elbow flexion. This is, or that is, the area where most of the athletes experience their sticking point. So it's a very nice technical variation to implement right from the start of your training, and it looks like that. You start like in a regular pull-up. You pull up to roughly 90-degree elbow flexion or forehead to bar. You pause shortly, and then you finish your pull-up. This will also help you to really control the full movement and not to rely on the acceleration only from the bottom face. It also helps you to get a bit better body awareness and movement awareness, positioning where you are in space, so a very nice assistance to do. With this technical variation, you try to match the reps of the top set just without the additional weight for the given amount of back off sets. Later in phase 2, you can of course also load up this technical variation with the pause in the middle range, and then I suggest you to use 15 to 20% less weight compared to the top set that you did with additional weight. You now successfully finished week 1 with day 1 doing 5 repetitions with 2.5 kg and day 2 doing 6 repetitions with 2.5 kg. And now we're gonna repeat exactly that system. So we're starting with 5 and then increasing to 6, but we add weight to the belt. If week 1 was pretty easy and pretty controlled for you, you can add another 2.5 kg. If you feel that creates a bit of too fast pace, then you can add 1.25 kg and you repeat day 1 and day 2 with exactly the same system. So we're adding 5 kg in week number 2. We're doing 5 reps on day 1, then our back off sets, and at day number 2 we're going to do 6 reps and then our back off sets. The week after, 7.5 kg or a smaller increment, and with that you're gonna level up week by week all the way to 25 kg. With the progression of the pull-ups, we also want to vary our assistance exercises a bit. Instead of using a regular single arm cable row, we are now increasing the angle of shoulder flexion that we are rowing in. And that means we create a high row pattern. So we row from the top down. That looks like that. So what we are creating is a bit of a different part in the movement where the pull is now the most difficult. We have the regular row, it's next to the body. With the high row, it's slightly more in front of the body, so that we're creating a bit of a variation. As you're now pretty adapted to pull training, your wrists, your elbows, your shoulders are pretty conditioned, we can slightly increase the volume in phase 2 and we can add a second rowing variation that we're going to put in day 2. And what I would recommend you to do here is a form of an upper back row. So when we row, we want to slightly abduct our arms while we are rowing in order to tackle that upper back a bit more. And a very, very nice setup to do it is when you're going with a chest support. In a regular gym, there's a ton of machines offering that. If you just have a V station like I have, you can just use a multi-bench like this and the cable setup to create your own chest supported upper back row. Here's how I do it. Put the pad in top, then I grab the handles, I walk around, and then I try to rest my chest or my head a bit, or I put something in between the bench and my chest to make that properly. And then I rotate my elbows slightly to the side and row into my upper back. I get into full stretch, and then again without retracting first and then rowing, we want to row in a proper motion, teaching our back proper scapular retraction like that. In phase 2, instead of the preacher curl, we can also progress or change the shoulder angle for the biceps variation. So instead of curling in front of our body, we're curling next to our body, slightly above shoulder level, to also condition our shoulder stability in that ranges. And that is what curls are doing a very, very good job for. And of course, growing the biceps and making it stronger. So what we want to do is we want to sit upright, sternum points forward. We're going to rotate the inside of our hand to the ceiling so that the armpit also points to the ceiling. Shoulder is relaxed, not shrugged. It stays in a neutral position. And then without arching, without shrugging, you want to, without moving the elbow out of position, bring your hand in the direction behind your head. And if knee raises became too easy, you can progress them to leg raises or even toes to bar if you're a natural talent. So leg raise like that, or a toes to bar. Like that. And at the end of phase 2, you're now hopefully ready to rep a bad boy like that for 6 clean repetitions with best 1 or 2 reps left in the tank. If you're now working with those bigger plates, as I told you in the beginning, make sure to have them in between your feet. This will give you the opportunity that when you pull your center of mass away from the bar, as you will naturally do in the pull-up, to slightly push the weights forward with your feet to counterbalance that, keeping your core in a nicely stacked position and create a lot of power output on top. And then you hopefully finish phase 1 strong. Boom. Ready for phase number 3. Phase number 1 and phase number 2 are ongoing phases that you can train as long as you need until you hit the desired end goal. Once you hit those 6 reps with 25 kg, with a bit of reps left in the tank, your estimated 1 rep max, so the theoretic potential that you have to move 1 rep max, should sit around 50 kg. It could be a bit higher or a bit lower depending on your body weight, but it should sit roughly at 50 kg. That means from this point in time, you're just 1 peaking phase away from finally hitting 50 kg for 1, which is the goal of this blueprint. So in the document, you will find a week by week training structure with reps and sets that will guide you slowly towards those heavier loads. And what we are using is a reps tapering strategy. So we start on a higher rep count, and then week by week we are decreasing the reps and increasing the weight. So our body slowly gets used to higher loads without being overloaded too fast. As you will see from the weight selection, the scheme starts very, very easy. And that is super important. We want to stay far away from failure in the first couple of weeks in order to keep the potential to add weight progressively. If we start super heavy, we're just getting very, very fatigued and we're hitting a wall pretty quickly. But as you will see, it's an 8 weeks long peaking where we're going to use weighted pull-ups on day 1 and the 90-degree middle range hold variation for day 2, both weighted, and therefore really stay honest with the weight selection, rather orientate yourself on the lower end in order to hit your big lift in week number 8. For all details, check the document and then you will know exactly what to do, because the rest of phase 3 stays exactly as in phase 2, because when we go into a peaking, we don't want to change up too many variables, so we're just changing the main lifts and we're keeping all the assistance exactly as we did in phase 2, because we know how our body reacts, we know the fatigue, we know the stress management that we need to do in order to perform with that amount of volume and that assistance exercises, and that is what we want to keep for the peaking and just manipulate the main lifts. And with that blueprint, you hopefully are also able to hit your 50 kg pull-up soon. And of course, you can then also repeat phase 2 and 3 with bigger weights and bigger weights and bigger weights until you hit a plateau again, and you maybe need to change the system to a different blueprint. If you then need a different blueprint, of course, you can book a coaching consulting call with us, and we can make sure that we find the best system together with you as your personal coaches. Or you can book my strength programming course if you're rather interested in other programming strategies and learn that in an e-learning course. So both options totally valid, and I hope this blueprint helps you. When I started, I wish I had something like that, so make sure to check the document and start training. To prepare our shoulder girdle for the upcoming pull-up session, our warm-up will consist of 3 exercises after a bit of systemic warm-up, which could be a concept 2 row, it could be jumping jacks, any form of rope jumping, whatever you like to do to get your temperature up. And after that, we're going to use those 3 exercises to get our structures mobile and move nicely through the whole shoulder complex. The first exercise that we're going to use is a trap free raise. The trap free raise will help us to warm up the external rotation and our shoulder flexion. And that is pretty nice because in the pull-up, we want to have those warm and mobile in order to not need to arch through our backs as much when we start the pull-up. And here's how the trap free looks like on an incline bench setup. So you don't need to use weight, you can, but you don't need to. You want to have your sternum on the pad, and then you point with your thumbs to the ceiling, so we get into a bit of an external rotation here, and then without arching, so without lifting up our chest, we raise our arms as high as possible. And you can think of reaching away from yourself when performing it. So I don't want to see any shrugging motion, rather think of making a very big circle. And then you should feel a nice contraction at the backside of your shoulder and between the shoulder blades and below the shoulder blades. The next warm-up exercise is a simple rowing exercise where we can use a light resistance band for. And the whole job of this exercise is to get a nice blood flow in all the involved muscles that we're going to use for the pull-up. What I want you to focus on is that you keep your sternum parallel to the rack, and then you let the band stretch your shoulder forward, and then you want to row with your elbow as far backwards behind the body until you feel that your shoulder wants to shrug forward. That is where you stop. And then you go through the full range of motion from the front to the back of your shoulder and really work those end ranges. Just avoid that you rotate forward and backward with your torso. For the last warm-up exercise, which is a single arm 45-degree triceps extension, we will also use our light resistance band and put it on a pull-up bar or anyway high on a rack. Then we grab it like that in a neutral grip. And what we're aiming for is a neutral shoulder position. So from the side, the shoulder stays like this so that there is a bit of chest visible. We don't want to shrug it up and forward. We also don't want to press the chest out and shrug the shoulder backwards. Neutral position. And what we're aiming for is a 45 degree of abduction. And in that position, we want to fully extend that arm. And we do that in order to prime and warm up our internal rotation and of course our triceps. What you will notice is that especially the first part of the pull-up involves also a lot of triceps, and in order to get the arms behind the back, we need access to internal rotation in the shoulder. So with the first exercise, we warmed up and primed our external rotation, and with the last one, we're now warming up and priming the internal rotation of the shoulder. So here's how that looks. Roughly 45-degree abduction. You want to stay parallel to the resistance band, and then without moving the shoulder, you want to fully extend that elbow and try to feel the contraction going down through the whole triceps when you contract.